I want you to welcome with me Pastor Sharon Ward from the Great Insight Church in Chicago. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You're
It's a
so
pleasure
beautiful.
to be here. So are you.
You are too. No matter who you are or gender, we are beautiful.
Yes.
Say it out loud. Say it. I dare you.
Beautiful.
Say it.
That's
say
right.
It, say it. It's kind of hard to say sometimes.
It is. But
it's true. Without
we're
qualification.
lovely.
Exactly.
Because of Jesus.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
He made us beautiful.
Yes, he did.
And he is beautiful.
Yes, he is.
Now, tell us a little bit about your background, because our early years are more defining than we think they are. Right. And you started out great. You had a great family. We have a lot of commonality in our stories.
Well, my father was a pastor, and we started out at, he really got introduced to the Word of Faith, and we started going to Kenneth Hagin camp meetings.
Same.
So that was our time. That was really a defining moment where we learned that families are in ministry, that families work together in ministry. And that became my father's dream, that we would work together in ministry, and the son would take over and the whole family would support and succeed the son. It was that was sort of the model that was set before us. And my father believed that you couldn't just play church. So he really put in our heart that we had to really make Jesus Lord of our life, that there was a difference between being in church, being around church, and really making Jesus Lord of your life. And so combining all those things together was my foundation.
Well, it sounds like your house was like the house I grew up in, where integrity, your own integrity before the Lord was utmost. And the integrity of the word, that, it's something, this occurs to me. It's true that how you live your life, you tend to project on the Lord. Like if you live a life of integrity, you have less question that God's going to live like that.
Right.
And so I grew up thinking my parents, the Lord, everybody's going to do what they say, because that's God. Is that the way it was at your house?
It was, and they did what they said. Mm-hmm. They were serious about serving the Lord. They were serious about not doing anything to blaspheme the name of the Lord, to make the name of the Lord a shame. So we grew up with these high standards. We grew up with, these lofty dreams of almost looking at other families, things, that when you look back at it, it's like, okay, we couldn't attain all of that, but it was a good standard to set, if that makes sense.
It does.
You have to have been there.
It does. It's like that does so much to train you in life in a natural way, which is good. Parents are to train their children, as we've found out as moms as well. But in that, when you're the kid and you're being trained in that way, here's the thing about Satan. He will find his way in no matter how you were raised, or because he's a liar, and he will lie to you even about how you were raised. But for me, I just thought everything was awesome my whole growing up.
Right.
And my yes to Jesus was so wholehearted, but it wasn't hard to make. I just thought, Jesus is everything. And what do you remember, like your first yes, or knowing that you love Jesus and you're going to serve him? What was that for you?
Well, we used to have morning prayer, 6 to 7 a.m., Monday through Friday. We'd go have prayer at our church. And I went to Oral Roberts University, and my father asked me to come back for a season to help him out at the church. And he said, I promise you can go back. Well, it was during that season when I thought my life was ending because I wasn't at college that I started to understand I needed a Savior. And it was in that morning prayer, there was an altar, a baptistry area behind the altar at our church. And I went back there, and I just remember screaming and just saying, yes, to Jesus. Jesus, I need you. Yes. In that moment, all of my years going to church 3 times on a Sunday, midweek, 2-3 times midweek, that was my yes. And I came out from behind that baptistry totally surrendering my life to the Lord. Mm-hmm. And that was a defining moment for me, that even though I had grown up in the church, grown up in the things of God, I was happy that my dad was popular. I was happy that, God had blessed us. But I needed a personal Savior, and that was really the first time. I've said yes so many other times after that, but that was really my first yes. I'm surrendering everything to you, Lord.
I think we value those moments or those years of life when we can just go with the flow and everything around us is trending godly, and it's easy to just be part of the collective.
Right.
I had this thought a few years ago. I thought, there is a place that you can just be satisfied and think that you're so strong and healthy in the Lord and you're full of faith because you are the collective.
Right.
The collective around you is faith, are faith people, or they're godly, or they love the Lord, and so that's how you are. And the moment that you wake up from that and go, oh, that maybe wasn't so much about me, it's about my community. But those are the moments where you really commit.
Yes.
Is when you learn you have need a Savior.
I need a Savior, and the things, the dreams and the aspirations I had in life, they were not, they didn't just happen like I thought they would. You know, you look at other people's lives and you think that their lives are just perfect and that God's just answering prayer every time they pray. They pray the next day, he's answering prayer. And I realized that was not happening for me. And that's where I started to, okay, God, I need you. Yeah. I need help. My life is not, it's not, I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm loving ministry. I see my parents in ministry, but I'm getting older now. And I need a life of my own, a family of my own. There's no one in sight. And that's where I had to really start to use my faith. We used to have healing lines at our church, and I'd be in the healing line, and they'd be like, "What do you need healing for?" I'm like, "I'm here for a husband."
That worked.
I just needed help. I needed God to help me. That's what I was using my faith for, my life and my dreams and my purpose.
But we don't like the delays. We don't like those moments. We don't like it when what was working doesn't seem to work. Yeah. And yet, should we learn to value those times?
Those times are what our ministry, James and our ministry is built on. It's built on those times in my life, those 12 years where I was just trusting God, believing God. Nothing was happening. Everything else, different men would come in my life, and I'm like, okay, this has got to be it. And it wouldn't work out. It wouldn't work out. Getting older and just trusting God that, hey, he has a life for me. He has a family for me. And it's not just my parents' family. Mm-hmm. He has something for me. He has a purpose for me. And even growing up where the son is supposed to take over and everybody's supposed to work for the son. Well, of course, life doesn't pan out that way. It wasn't in our cards that my husband was going to be called to ministry too. It's like, what do you do when there's one church and two senior pastors? God has had a lot. We've had to use our faith to work out what God has for us. And it was bigger than what we thought.
It always is.
It always is. And he's so faithful.
When you're talking, I'm thinking about our yes to Jesus requires a lot of no's. Mm. There are a lot of no's in the middle between yes and yes to Jesus. And you had to stay that line with him, not get impatient. I mean, when you mess up and you say yes to what was a no, should have been a no, he will work you through it and bring you to the other side. That's the thing. I feel like there's so much fear about saying yes. There's fear about saying no. What if I say no to this person and he was the one and he's going to be my last chance at ever having a family?
Right.
We can't let the fear of God abandoning us keep us from saying no.
Right.
Or the fear of what's ahead keep us from saying yes.
Right.
How did you come to that place where you and Pastor James, like you knew he was the one?
Well, I was like, okay, we were friends. You always start out as friends in the church. And I thought, okay, I'm older than him. This is not the person for me. This is not going to work out. And I'm like, okay, I'm falling in love with him. Here we go again. And it was, my father was one that he would pray and hear from the Lord. He'd be like, you can marry him, but I just don't feel this is the person for you. And James, unlike the other men that had come in my life, he really had the least. He had just graduated college. He really didn't own anything. He had a part-time job. And that's who my father said, I think this is who God has for you. So on the outside, none of the boxes checked off except for he had a heart after God. He was passionate about the Lord. He was in love with God. And I'm one of those aggressive, assertive women, and he could handle me. So I was like, okay, he's a man's man, and he's not intimidated.
Yeah. Well, I know that family is very big on your heart. Yeah. And as a mom and a wife, that's a lot of yeses right there to the Lord, because so much of, what your time is spent on and what your thoughts are spent on, they're not really wrapped up in, yourself. Talk to us, tell us how God led you to truths in parenting that allowed you to develop such an amazing family today, and because it's not just you're not just parenting when you're having these little kids.
Right.
It's as they get older and you're adjusting to growing children and aging out as little children. Right. That's a big place for us as women or men, dads, adjusting.
It is. And for us as women, I find that it doesn't just encompass my two kids. We have two amazing kids, Hannah and Jonathan.
How old are they?
Hannah is 22. She just graduated college, and now she's going to Regent to get her MDiv, and Jonathan is a junior in college. They both work with us in ministry, amazing. But I find that as a family and as a mom, it's not just about my two kids. It becomes about my entire family, my nieces and nephews. It's complicated for us as women because we have a heart, and our prayer is for our entire family to succeed and to live before the Lord and to find Christ and to find their purpose. So for me, it's been about, God, what do you have for each and every one of my nieces and nephews? Not just my own kids.
I love that.
Yeah, and I think as women, it's bigger than just our kids. We have a heart for our family. When they're going through, we're going through. We're praying. We're in there with our siblings. Sometimes we're fighting about their kids that are not ours. But we have a heart to see our family serve the Lord and none be lost.